Jean-Marie Saint-Paul, you are the current CEO of Siemens France. Can you please describe yourself, explain who you are, introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. So yes, indeed, actually, to be more precise, I'm the CEO of Siemens Digital Industries in France, which is one of the branch of the company. And that branch focuses on one topic, which is how to make the industry better. How can we make the industry more efficient? I would say more resilient also, and reducing also its impact in terms of carbon footprint and ecological footprint. So the purpose and the mission of our company is to deploy technologies, software and hardware technologies in order to develop automation across the industries. And that's what we're doing all across France.
Okay, so thank you for this more accurate introduction. You talk about the notion of impact for the company. Now, can we jump into the point and reflect on what's, according to you, what's an impactful Siemens citizen, I would say, or Siemens employee?
Well, if we start with, first of all, impact, and maybe we can start from a definition, going back to the dictionary to see what it means. And what it says is that impact is about bringing measurable effect or influence that at the end has an action on something or someone. And I think this definition is a good starting point, because what we're saying is that impact is something you should be able to measure in some way. And impact is not only about influencing something, it's also about influencing people. And so I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is that Siemens Digital Industries is all about transformation. We're trying to transform the industry to something new, to not anymore the industry that we used to see with a lot of smoke and these big factories and stuff like that, but turn the industry to something else. And so as such, we want to have an impact on the industry. And so we need to have people within our teams who can bring this impact, who can represent and convey this impact. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about.
Okay, but let me reflect on what you just said. Does that mean that any employee that has an idea that could support this type of impact Siemens wants to target, can any employee, whatever its position is or her position, whatever his or her identity, could bring an impact?
Well, that's a good point, and I think it goes beyond Siemens itself. A company is a set of people getting together, and the larger the company gets, the more you need structures and way to organize yourself in order to deliver value. And so if I get back to your sentence, obviously it's not just about having ideas, it's about bringing the ideas through the organization. And I think that it is great to have ideas. That's a good starting point, I would say. But then you need to adapt to your teams, to your organization, and think about what is the best way for me to convey that idea across my organization. And so from my point of view, taking the example of Siemens, we're a German company. And so by construction, we have processes and we have organizations. So we know how to do things, or at least we have ways to do things. And so someone bringing ideas and who is willing to bring impact should have, first of all, these ideas, but then I think he needs to be able to understand the company and think about the best way he can spread these ideas across the organization, which from my point of view takes at least three elements. The first thing I think is that one who wants to create impact must be able to work in teams, because having an impact is not just about you. Having an impact is about a group. And obviously, there's a lot one can do, but there's even more that a team can do. And I think that when you work into an organization like Siemens, but any other companies, it should not be just about what is my impact, but also what could be through me the impact of my team. So that's one very key point from my point of view, teamwork. The second key point for someone who wants to have an impact is ownership. And we know that this is always something difficult within a team. It's easy to have an idea, it's more difficult to carry it forward.
Mm.
Uh, all of us have ideas. You know, we have drinks with friends and we say, oh, we could do this, we could do that. Okay, good. But who is going to do it? And so I think that's a very, very important point. Having an impact is about working with others. And it's also about saying, okay, I'm ready to take ownership and move forward with this idea. Last but not least, and it's somehow connected with the two other elements, is to be curious, is to be able to listen to others. Because we might have bright ideas, but if we bring these ideas forwards in a blind way, not trying to look at what the others are doing, most likely you will fail. Because again, you're not alone. And also your idea might be bright, but it's always interesting to, test it and discuss it and enhance it. And this is where you discover the power of a team again. So I think that if I had to think about three minimum elements for someone to have an impact, I would think about teamwork, ownership, and curiosity.
Okay, so teamwork, ownership, curiosity. Now, while preparing this interview, you mentioned that you believe that these three top elements are not gendered per definition, meaning that women and men alike, as Siemens employee, any kind of this person could do the job, assuming they can work by team, be capable of taking over the ownership, and of course being curious. Now my question is, the first time we met, we worked on women, and it was during a specific day that you implemented a couple of years ago, working on women at Siemens. What's wrong with women? What's the key issue with Siemens?
I don't think there's per se an issue with women's. There's none from my point of view. I think it's a matter of, it's more about if something is wrong, it's more the society than women's. Um, um, I think, the reason why we at Siemens invest uh, on trying to bring more women's forward is because we do very much realize that innovation and value creation for our customers comes from diversity. And diversity cannot be just, uh, always the same people. And if at the end of the day, your teams are made of men's only, then there is a piece of diversity that you miss. There is an angle that most likely you're not exploring.
Mm.
And so, and unfortunately, within our domains, which are very much technical domains of technical people, engineers, research people, there is unfortunately an a unfair amount of women's that are part of these organizations. So there's not enough women's at engineering schools and technical schools and research trainings. And as a result, we within our organization don't have enough women's in our teams. And that's something we're willing to change. First of all, because we're always looking for talents. And at the end of the day, if there is a pool of talents that we're not tapping into, we know that we're missing something. That's the first point. We're always looking for good people. And second, we also believe that there is no reason why society is pretty much, half men's, half women's. Actually, there's a bit more women's than men, and that our own company should not be. The question is, how do you get from where we are today, which is the fact that there's not a lot of women that are studying sciences, and where we want to be tomorrow? And that's a long-term investment.
Mm.
But from my point of view, putting that problem aside, which is attracting women's within our organization, which are more science-based, then then the quality required are pretty much the same. I don't believe women's needs to have a different type of knowledge or talent than men's. At the end of the day, it's still about, you know, how do you manage to work in teams? How do you manage to take ownership and be curious? And maybe at the end, you know, sometimes people may say, well, maybe you know, men's are fighting at each other while women's less, and that may help with teamwork. So I don't know. I guess each woman listening to me will feel whether or not they feel good in working in teams, whether they feel good in the idea of being curious and taking ownership. If they're not, well, my recommendation is that they should work on it. And it's sometimes as difficult for a man or a woman to take ownership because taking ownership is not easy. But I don't think it's harder for a woman or a man, actually.
Okay, so just to conclude and to go back to the initial question, you mean that if we want to promote women's impact in the economy, and especially in the Nanoelec industry, your recommendation would say, hey, women, but men alike, please check, work, be capable of working by team, work on your awareness, ownership.
Yes.
And finally, I forgot the last point. I'm
Be
sorry.
curious.
Be curious and open, and try to widespread your ideas and spread your ideas and test your ideas.
Yes, and again, just like for men's and women's, I would say we need all of us to be humble in the fact that we might have brilliant ideas, but then we need to convey these ideas. And it's not about hammering our ideas on the others. It's about then working with the team, working with our ecosystem around us to prove why our idea is a good one and to move it forward. And that, I think, from my point of view, is not gender related. It's just work at the end. It's just about working with the others and coming in a humble way with our point of view and trying to put it forward.
Okay, so thank you for the great explanation of what impact means and how could women better jump into this impact process, especially at Siemens. So thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Stanford. Thank you.